How you holding up today, my friend? Certainly hope you're doing well. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. In this series of discussions leading up to Easter, we're discussing the lengths to which God went in order to win your heart. If you'd like to share your prayer requests in the comments, we'll be sure to pray for you. And if you can't stay around, I certainly understand. I'm going to need about 7 minutes, I'm thinking, to share with you one of the promises from the sign on Jesus' cross. You know, long before I married, I knew the importance of reading the signs of a spouse. Wise is the man who learns the nonverbal language of his wife, who notes the nod and discerns the gestures. It's just not what is said, but it's really how it is said and when it is said. And it's not just when, but it's where. A good husbanding is good decoding. You got to read the signs. Now, I thought I was doing a pretty good job that weekend in Miami. Just a few months into our marriage. I mean, we were still pretty well newlyweds. We were hosting some distinguished guests in our little apartment. I had invited a guest speaker to stay with us on Saturday night. He's going to be guest speaking on Sunday morning at the church. Now, when Denalyn heard the news, she gave me a sign, a verbal sign. She said, "We better clean the apartment." On Friday night, she issued a second sign, a nonverbal sign. She began scrubbing the kitchen. I mean, really scrubbing it. Now, much to my credit, I put the two signs together and I got the message and I got off the couch. What can I do? I thought, what can I do to help? Now, never one to tackle the simple jobs. I passed on dusting and vacuuming, and I looked for a more sophisticated, more challenging task. And after a diligent search, I thought of the perfect one. I would fill a picture frame with pictures. One of our wedding gifts was, you know what I'm talking about, a collage picture frame. We had not even unpacked it, much less filled it. But all that would change that night. So I got to work with Denalyn scrubbing floors behind me and an unmade bed beside me. I dumped a shoebox of photos in front of me and I started to assemble the pictures. I don't know what I was thinking. Some of you wives are groaning, and some of you men are relating. I had missed the message. When Denalyn entered the room with a chill in her voice that would have frozen perdition, when she asked me what I was doing, to be honest, I still missed the message. I said, I'm just making a collage of pictures. I replied joyfully. Now, for the next half hour or so, she did not speak. No problem, I assumed. She was likely praying, thanking God for such a wonderful mate. I imagined her thinking, maybe he'll work on our scrapbook next. But such were not her thoughts. My first clue that something was wrong was her final pronouncement of the evening. Having single-handedly cleaned the entire apartment, she announced, "I'm going to bed. I'm very upset. Tomorrow morning, I will tell you why." Well, somehow we miss the signs, don't we? You know, the framer of our destiny is familiar with our denseness. God knows that sometimes we miss the signs. Maybe that's why He has given us so many. The rainbow after the flood, that was a sign symbolizing God's covenant. The stars at night portray the size of His family. Communion is a sign of His death. Baptism is a sign of our spiritual birth. Each of these signs symbolize a greater spiritual truth. The most poignant sign, however, was a literal sign on the cross, a trilingual, hand-painted, Roman-commissioned sign. The Gospel of John states that Pilate wrote a sign and he put it on the cross, and it read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Many of the people read the sign because the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city. That's all in John chapter 19. Now, why is a sign placed over the head of Jesus? Could it be that this piece of wood is a picture of God's devotion, a symbol of His passion to tell the world about His Son, a reminder that God will do whatever it takes to share with you and me the message of this sign? The sign reveals this truth: there is no person He will not use, no person He does not want to reach. The sign bore immediate fruit. You might remember the response of the criminal who hung on the cross moments from his own death. In a maelstrom of pain, he turned and he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." That was Luke's contribution, chapter 23. What an interesting choice of words. He doesn't say, "Please save me." He doesn't beg, "Have mercy on my soul." His appeal has to do with a king. He's like a servant speaking to a king. It must be because he read the sign, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." The thief knew he was in a royal mess. He turned his head and read a royal proclamation, and he asked for royal help. It might have been this simple. If so, the sign was the first tool used to proclaim the message of Christ our King hanging on a cross. And because of the sign, a soul was saved. All because Pilate had the sign posted on the cross of Christ. It's interesting, Pilate did not intend to spread the gospel. In fact, Pilate had intended the sign to, threaten, mock the Jews. But God had another purpose. Indeed, Pilate was God's unwitting instrument for spreading the gospel. Unknown to himself, Pilate took dictation from God and wrote it on a sign. And the sign changed the destiny of a reader. Take a good long look at the sign this year, as we head into Good Friday and Easter. Ponder its declaration: Jesus truly is the King, and on that day the King allowed himself to be crucified on the hill of Calvary. Why? Because you and me, like the thief on the cross, are in need of a king who will die for our sins. It's one thing to miss the sign from your wife, but it's something else entirely to miss a sign from God. Let's not do that.